One of the biggest hits on Broadway right now is a new version of Cats, the legendary musical based on T.S. Eliot's poetry about a tribe of felines called Jellicles. It's an imaginary name, now reimagined in Cats, the Jellicle Ball, and critical acclaim has followed. The musical received 9 Tony Award nominations and won 3. Senior arts correspondent Jeffrey Brown took in the show and talked to composer Andrew Lloyd Webber, who created it and so much more for our arts and culture series, Canvas.
The high-energy spectacle is certainly still there. Famous songs get their moments. The words and characters are still based on a cycle of poems originally written for children by renowned poet T.S. Eliot. But in some important ways, this is a new Cats. And the man who wrote the music and started it all back in the late 1970s, Andrew Lloyd Webber, sees something very exciting.
I can see a Cats that, is not just reimagined, which it is. It's not just a revival, but for some reason, I think it gets closer to the heart of Eliot's writing than any version of it that I've seen before, any other.
Cats, the Jellicle Ball gets there in an unexpected way. No more cats in a London junkyard. Instead, directors Jalen Livingston and Bill Rausch have set the action in New York's queer ballroom scene, where contestants in and out of drag and never far from a history of oppression and ostracization sing and dance, competing and flaunting their styles and personalities, celebrating their culture.
It sort of feels organically right. And
because it reaches into these kind of differences in humanity,
I think it does. I think it touches on something, which it's very hard to define, but it's very rare when it happens, and I do think that this production has done that.
Now 78, Lloyd Webber knows something of making theater magic. In the late 1960s and early 70s, working with lyricist Tim Rice, he composed the music for Jesus Christ Superstar and Evita. But as he told me outside the theater where the Jellicle Ball is playing, when he first dreamed up the idea of a kind of musical revue featuring singing cats, he was met with derision.
Suddenly, you are backs to the wall and everybody says, this is the most disastrous idea, nobody should ever be doing this.
Is that what people were saying?
Yeah, I mean, it opened with some of the investment missing, and I had to get a second mortgage on my house to pay for production costs.
Suffice it to say, he was able to pay off his mortgage. Cats was a cultural phenomenon, beloved, parodied, running on Broadway for nearly 18 years. A record later surpassed by another Lloyd Webber mega hit, Phantom of the Opera, which opened on Broadway in 1988 and ran a remarkable 35 years. Across the street from the theater at Broadway's Sardi's restaurant, we talked about the art and craft of musical theater, including advice from famed director Hal Prince.
Do you work thinking about the entire show from the beginning, or are you thinking about individual songs?
You have to think of the entire show. I've learned the hard way that a great story is what you need. If the story for some reason has not been quite right, then no amount of music, no matter how good, will really, really make it a great evening or even save a show. Sometimes a very good story can carry a not so good score. Mm-hmm. But I've never found it the other way around.
Does the same thing apply to individual songs? I mean, do you know you've got a great song, or is it only great within the context of hearing it within the production?
Well, I would go so far as to say some of the greatest songs ever written for musical theatre, we wouldn't know if they had been in shows that hadn't worked. It comes back to the fact that so many factors in musicals, I always remember that one of the things that Hal Prince said to me when I was very young. He wrote to me when I'd had a big flop musical in London, just saying, I'd keep some of those tunes for something else. But he said, you can't listen to a musical if you can't look at it. And by that he meant that the production design has got to be right, Every aspect has got to be right for a show to really click.
Knighted and later bestowed with a life peerage, he's Lord Lloyd Webber. He wrote an anthem, Make a Joyful Noise, for the 2023 coronation of King Charles, and has composed more than 20 musicals in all. He's seen plenty of misses among the hits, taken his share of critical punches, and kept working.
What about when there have been failures? How have you dealt with it? What about when there has been, critical...
Well, you move on.
Negatives.
You move on, and you also know that if the thing's actually any good, it'll resurface again in some way. Or if it's not, or if the story's not quite right, then it probably won't.
In fact, he's lately seeing something of a renaissance of earlier works presented by a new generation of directors, including a new version of Sunset Boulevard, originally on Broadway in the 90s. And now, Cats, the Jellicle Ball.
A lot of things have come together at the same time.
But does it surprise you that this is happening?
I always feel that the shows, if they're any good, would stand the test of time. I think for me now, all these years later, seeing it as the Jellicle Ball, it's incredibly moving now because they are real people as cats. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, for example, 19 of them have never been on Broadway before, all of these things, somehow there's a kind of raw quality, which is, cats are street things, aren't they?
So are you surprised all these years later at how many times it all has come together for you?
Well, I'm very lucky. I mean,
Is that how it feels? Lucky?
I do feel that, because I feel that you're very lucky in life if you know what you want to do. I think you're incredibly lucky if you succeed in doing what you want to do, and you can make a living out of it. But if you can have the kind of career that I've had, doing the one thing that I really enjoy, I mean, in a way, I can't do anything other than say I'm the luckiest man alive.
Hardly slowing down, he has several new projects in the works. In addition, a highly acclaimed new production of Evita comes to Broadway next year. As for Cats and its more than 9 lives, the Jellicle Ball has been extended at least into next January. For the PBS News Hour, I'm Jeffrey Brown on Broadway.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.